The silence of the night was shattered by the screech of tearing metal as Sky's spacecraft plummeted through Earth's atmosphere. Flames licked the hull, painting streaks across the sky before the ship slammed into the barren desert with a deafening crash. Sky groaned, her body aching from the impact. Every breath was a battle as she clawed at the harness pinning her to the pilot's seat. The cockpit was a mess of sparks and flickering lights, the control panels hissing their last. With a forceful tug, she freed herself and staggered to the ship's exit, collapsing onto the cold sand outside. The desert was vast, an endless expanse under the moon's pale glow. She looked back at the wreckage, her heart sinking. She was alone, far from home, and without a way back. "Communicator!" she gasped, remembering the device attached to her suit. Fumbling with trembling fingers, she activated it, only to hear static. Her only link to her people was gone, swallowed by the void. As dawn painted the horizon in hues of orange and pink, Sky managed to stand, surveying the desolate landscape. "Where am I?" she muttered to herself, her voice a mix of fear and awe. Footsteps crunched on the sand behind her. She spun around, instinctively adopting a defensive stance. A figure approached, tall and human, with eyes reflecting a mixture of curiosity and caution. "Who are you?" Jack called out, stopping a safe distance away. His hand hovered near the pistol at his belt, trained instincts on alert. "I mean no harm," Sky replied, her voice steady despite her wariness. The universal translator embedded in her neck, thankfully doing its part. Jack noticed the wreckage, then her alien features, and slowly removed his hand from his weapon. "You crashed. Need help?" Sky nodded, lowering her guard slightly. "Yes, my ship is destroyed. I am stranded." "Jack," he introduced himself simply. "This is Earth. You're safe here, for now." He eyed the skies as if expecting a fleet to appear. "Sky," she responded, managing a weak smile. Her gaze drifted to the horizon, to the unknown world stretching out before her. "Earth. I've read about it." Jack studied her for a moment, then gestured towards the east. "I have a place not far from here. You can rest, heal. We'll figure out your next steps in the morning." Relief washed over Sky, mingling with exhaustion. "Thank you, Jack," she said as they began walking, the first light of day casting long shadows on the sand. The silence of the desert enveloped them, punctuated only by their footsteps and the distant call of a desert owl. Sky followed, her thoughts a whirlwind. Earth was not the sanctuary she had sought, but in this stranger, she found an unexpected glimmer of hope. As they walked, the first rays of sunlight warmed her face, and for the first time since the crash, she dared to believe she might just survive. Jack led the way through the undulating desert, his strides sure and steady. Sky followed closely, her eyes scanning the vast emptiness that enveloped them. The Earth's sun climbed higher, casting a warm golden light over the sand. It was beautiful, yet so alien to her. "How did you end up here?" Jack asked over his shoulder, breaking the silence. Sky hesitated, her memories of the war that ravaged her planet surfacing painfully. "I was escaping a conflict. My world. It's not safe anymore. I needed to get away, to find help." Jack nodded, understanding more than he let on. "You're not the first alien visitor we've had, but you might be the first who didn't come with a fleet." A soft laugh escaped her, surprising even herself. "I guess that makes me unique." They reached a modest, isolated house just as the heat of the day began to intensify. The structure was simple, surrounded by a few hardy plants that somehow thrived in the arid conditions. "Here we are," Jack announced, unlocking the door. "It's not much, but it's safe." Inside, the house was Spartan but clean. Sky glanced around, noting the minimalistic setup with a few personal touches. A photo here, a well-used book there. "Thank you, Jack," she said, her voice soft with gratitude. She paused, then added, "If there's anything I can do to—" "We'll sort it out later," Jack interrupted, seeing her exhaustion. "First, you rest." He showed her to a small room with a window that framed the endless desert. "I'll be around if you need anything." As he left, Sky sank onto the bed, the softness of it alien to her hardened body. Thoughts swirled in her mind, of her home, the war, and what the future might hold on this strange new planet. Sleep, however, claimed her before she could untangle them. Hours later, Sky awoke to the smell of something unfamiliar cooking. She followed the scent to the kitchen, where Jack was stirring something in a pot. "Feeling better?" he asked without turning. Yes, thank you, she replied, taking a seat at the table. What is that? Stew. Earth food. You might like it, he said, bringing over 2 bowls. They ate in silence, the simplicity of the meal a stark contrast to the complexity of her situation. After eating, Jack sat back, his expression turning serious. Sky, if you're going to stay on Earth, even for a little while, there are things you need to understand. About us, about how things work here. Sky listened intently as Jack explained Earth's geopolitical landscape, the existence of other aliens, and the delicate balance of powers. It was a lot to take in, but Sky absorbed every word. You'll need a story, Jack concluded. Something to explain your presence here without causing a panic. A story, Sky repeated, the weight of her new reality settling on her shoulders. Yeah, and I'll help you with it, Jack assured her. We'll figure this out together. That night, as Sky lay in bed, the alien stars overhead no longer felt oppressive. Instead, they were a canopy of new possibilities, and for the first time since her crash, she felt a flicker of hope stirring in the dark. The following days blurred into a routine of slow recovery and cultural exchange. Jack, who turned out to be a man of few words but deep reservoirs of knowledge, taught Sky about Earth's customs, languages, and its unexpectedly complex history with extraterrestrial engagements. Every morning, they started with language lessons. Sky, with her quick alien intellect, picked up English rapidly. How do you say this in your language? Jack would often ask, pointing to random objects around the house. It's called *3*, Sky would respond, her voice melodic with the unfamiliar clicks and whistles of her native tongue. In the afternoons, they discussed more serious topics. Jack pulled up news on a tablet, showing her the current state of world affairs. Here, we have our own conflicts, but nothing on the scale of what you've described, he explained, scrolling through articles of political tensions and environmental issues. Sky was particularly fascinated by Earth's environmental diversity. You have oceans, she marveled one day as Jack showed her images of vast blue seas and deep green forests. On my planet, everything's built up. Nature is something from the old stories. Jack raised an eyebrow. You mean you've never seen an ocean? No, never, Sky admitted. We'll have to change that, Jack decided. One evening, as they sat watching the sunset from his front porch, Sky opened up about the war on her planet. It started over resources, as most wars do, she began, her voice tinged with sadness. But it escalated because of fear. Fear of the other. Fear of losing what little we had left. Jack listened intently, his face shadowed by the dying light. Fear can make monsters out of anyone, he said quietly. Sky looked at him, seeing not just the rugged features of a human, but the empathy and understanding of someone who had also seen too much. What about you, Jack? What's your story? Jack hesitated, then spoke of his time in the military, his subsequent loss of family, and his retreat from the chaotic world into this secluded existence. I came here to escape, much like you, he concluded. Their shared experiences of loss and survival drew them closer. Sky found herself looking forward to their daily interactions, each day peeling back another layer of the complex human sitting across from her. One night, as they gazed up at the starlit sky, Sky pointed to a faint star. That's where I'm from, she said softly. Jack looked at the star, then at Sky. Seems pretty lonely out there. It was, she agreed, but less so now. In that moment, under the vast Earth sky, Sky realized that despite the vast distances from everything she knew, she was no longer as lost or as lonely as she had been. With each passing day, Earth began to feel less like exile and more like home. Several weeks had passed since Sky's crash landing, and life on Earth was becoming a comfortable routine. The tranquility of their secluded life was, however, about to be shattered. One morning, as Sky was learning to navigate the internet under Jack's guidance, an urgent news alert popped up on the screen. It was an obscure report from a local news outlet about a mysterious object found in the desert near where Sky had crashed. The article was vague, but the implications were clear to both of them. Someone was looking for Sky. Jack's face hardened as he read the report. They might be closing in on you. We need to be ready to move at a moment's notice, he said, turning to Sky. Who are they exactly? Sky asked, her voice steady despite the fear creeping into her heart. Could be scavengers, could be government, or worse, your people's enemies. Jack explained as he pulled up maps and started plotting potential routes out. We need to assume the worst. They'll track the technology in your ship. Sky nodded, her mind racing through scenarios. I removed most of the power cells and hid them around here. They're safe unless someone knows exactly what to look for. Good. Let's hope it stays that way, Jack replied. They spent the rest of the day preparing a bug-out bag and reinforcing their getaway plan. The following day, Jack decided it was time for a practical lesson in survival. You need to know how to defend yourself, he insisted. They spent hours in the arid land behind his house, where Jack taught her basic hand-to-hand combat and how to handle a firearm. Sky, agile and quick to learn, mastered the basics faster than Jack anticipated. Their training was interrupted by the sound of an engine in the distance. They froze, listening as the sound grew louder, then softer. Someone was patrolling the area. We need to go now, Jack said, his voice tense. They grabbed their prepared bags and headed to Jack's old, rugged vehicle parked in the garage. As they drove away, Sky looked back at the small house that had become her sanctuary. The sun was setting, casting long shadows over the desert. She felt a pang of sorrow at leaving, but the growing fear of capture hardened her resolve. They drove through the night, taking back roads and rarely used paths Jack knew from his military days. As dawn broke, they were deep in the mountains, far from any familiar territory. Hiding in an abandoned cabin, Jack set up a perimeter alarm while Sky scanned their surroundings with a makeshift receiver she had rigged to detect electronic signals. If anyone followed them, they'd know. That night, as they sat by a small fire, Sky turned to Jack. Why are you helping me? You're risking everything. Jack looked into the fire, reflecting on her words. Because I know what it's like to be hunted, to be alone. Besides, I made a promise to myself a long time ago to never turn away someone in need. Sky nodded, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Thank you, Jack. They settled into an uneasy sleep, aware that the days ahead would challenge the fragile peace they had built in their isolation. But for now, they had each other, and a fighting chance. Jack and Sky had been on the move for days, navigating through less-known trails and temporary hideouts. As they neared a sprawling metropolis, Jack decided it was time to integrate into a more populated area where they could better blend in. Big cities can offer better cover, Jack explained as they drove into the bustling city. Sky observed the towering skyscrapers and the flood of diverse people with both awe and anxiety. They rented a small, nondescript apartment on the outskirts under assumed names. Jack had prepared fake IDs ahead of time, a precaution from his days in the service that now came in handy. We lay low, change our appearance, move around like shadows, he instructed. Despite their precautions, trouble was brewing faster than they anticipated. Sky's enemies had utilized advanced tracking technology that picked up traces of the unique energy signature from her ship's power cells. Just 3 days into their urban hiding, while Sky was out scouting for supplies, she noticed a group of suspicious-looking individuals canvassing the area. Their discreet yet unmistakable search pattern signaled they were not just any ordinary people looking for a lost pet. Sky rushed back to the apartment, her heart pounding. Jack, we've got company. I saw them. Professionals by the look of it, scanning the area. Without hesitating, Jack grabbed their ready bag. Time to ghost, he said, a phrase they had come to use for their swift escapes. They barely made it out of the back service exit when the first team arrived at the front of their building. Blending into the crowd, Sky and Jack navigated through the busy city streets, ducking into alleys and behind buses, using every trick Jack knew to evade pursuit. The chase led them into the heart of the city. Realizing they couldn't shake their pursuers in the open, Jack led Sky into the subway system, hoping the underground tunnels and the crowd would offer them some respite. As they descended into the subway, Sky's acute senses picked up the faint sound of footsteps echoing their own. They're still on us, she whispered urgently to Jack. At the next station, Jack made a snap decision. This way, he said, pulling Sky onto a train just as the doors were closing. They watched through the glass as their pursuers arrived just seconds too late, their frustrated expressions clear even through the speeding train. But they weren't safe yet. The train would only buy them time. They needed a new plan, and fast. Sitting in the corner of the crowded train car, Sky leaned close to Jack. We can't keep running like this. It's only a matter of time before they catch up. Jack nodded, his mind racing. We need to confront this head on. It's time to stop running, to turn and fight. Sky agreed, her expression resolute. Let's prepare then. We strike back at dawn. They'll never see it coming. As the train rolled through the tunnels, their plan began to take shape. A plan to turn the hunters into the hunted. Their bond, formed through shared adversity, was now their greatest strength. Together, they prepared to face whatever came next. By the time dawn painted the city skyline in shades of orange and purple, Jack and Sky had formulated a plan. They found refuge in an abandoned warehouse in a neglected part of the city, a place Jack had known from his military days that was off the grid and secure. As they prepared their defenses and strategized, Sky couldn't help but reflect on the human beside her. Jack, I never expected... Her voice trailed off, laden with emotion. Jack looked over, his hands busy checking equipment. Never expected what? Sky paused, searching for the right words. To feel this, connected. To care so much about someone from another world. Jack stopped his work, his expression softening. Sky, I don't know how all this will end, but I do know one thing. You've changed everything for me. No matter what happens, that means something. The air between them was charged with an unspoken acknowledgement of their deepening bond. It was more than survival now. It was about the connection that had grown in the face of adversity. As they set their plans, Sky approached Jack, her decision clear. I want to fight, not just hide, with you. Jack nodded, his respect for her courage evident. Then we fight together. Let's make sure they regret ever tracking us down. Using Sky's knowledge of alien technology and Jack's tactical experience, they rigged the warehouse with traps and prepared a series of ambushes. They were no longer running. They were standing their ground. As night fell, their sensors picked up the approaching signatures of their pursuers. Jack and Sky took their positions, each movement a testament to their determination. The attackers came stealthily, expecting an easy capture. The first to enter triggered a net trap that Sky had engineered, entangling him instantly. The second was met by Jack, who subdued him with swift precision. Come out, Sky, we don't want to hurt you, called a voice from outside, trying to reason with her. Sky responded not with words, but with action, signaling Jack to initiate the next phase. A series of loud noises and flashing lights disoriented the attackers, giving Sky and Jack the advantage. The confrontation was intense and brief. Jack and Sky worked seamlessly, a duo forged in fire. One by one, the attackers were incapacitated, their plans thwarted by the very person they sought to capture. As the adrenaline of the fight ebbed, Sky and Jack surveyed the incapacitated attackers. We did it, Jack breathed out, almost in disbelief. Sky looked around, her eyes finally meeting Jack's. We did, she agreed, a smile breaking through the tension. In the quiet aftermath, as they secured the area, Sky took Jack's hand. Whatever comes next, I'm glad to face it with you. Jack squeezed her hand in return, his heart full. Same here, Sky. Same here. That night, as they kept watch, their conversation turned from strategies to dreams. Dreams of a peaceful life, perhaps together. In the shared silence of their guard, they realized that their bond had grown into something profound, something neither had dared to hope for, but both now cherished deeply. With their attackers subdued and tied securely within the warehouse, Jack and Sky had a moment to plan their next move. It was clear now that they would continue to be hunted unless they could somehow end this threat permanently. We need to send a message, Jack suggested, his mind racing through tactical options. We've captured their team. We can use them to negotiate, or we could use them to draw out their leader, Sky interjected, her strategic mind aligning with Jack's. If we can get to the head of the snake, we can end this chase for good. Jack nodded in agreement. Let's set it up. We'll arrange a meet under the pretense of exchanging these guys for safe passage off Earth. Sky began to make preparations, using the enemy's communication devices to send a message, dictating terms for a meeting. She chose an abandoned industrial complex by the coast, remote and exposed enough for them to control the situation. The next day, as the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the dilapidated structures of the industrial complex, Jack and Sky positioned themselves. They were equipped with the best defensive and offensive setups they could manage, Jack with his array of firearms, and Sky with her alien technology enhancements. As the enemy's vehicles dusted the horizon, Jack checked his watch, then looked to Sky. Ready for this? As I'll ever be, Sky responded, her demeanor calm but resolute. The vehicles stopped, and a group of armed men escorted a figure from the central car. The leader, a tall, imposing figure, approached the designated meeting point. Sky stepped forward, Jack covering her from a hidden position. "You want your people back? Let's talk terms," she called out, her voice echoing in the open space. The leader, observing the bound captives, smiled thinly. "You think you're in a position to negotiate?" he challenged, his gaze calculating. Sky stood her ground. "I'm not here to negotiate. I'm here to end this. You leave us, and Earth, alone. That's the only way you get your men back." The tension was palpable as the leader weighed his options. His gaze shifted between Sky and his bound team members. Finally, he nodded slowly. "Agreed. But how do I know you'll hold up your end?" Before Sky could respond, a sniper's shot rang out, not from Jack, but from another direction. Chaos erupted as both sides realized there was another player in the game, a rival faction of the leader's own race, aiming to capitalize on his perceived weakness. Jack sprung into action, providing cover fire, while Sky used her alien tech to create a shield around them. The leader, caught off guard and fearing for his life, signaled his surrender, realizing that Sky and Jack had unintentionally saved him. In the aftermath, as the rival faction retreated, having failed their coup, Jack, Sky, and the leader came to a rapid, enforceable agreement. The leader would withdraw his pursuit, grateful for the unexpected rescue, and in return, Sky and Jack would release his team. As the leader's convoy disappeared into the dusk, Sky and Jack looked at each other, their bond strengthened by the ordeal, aware that they had not only survived, but forged a new beginning from the furnace of conflict. They had protected each other, and in turn, forged a tentative peace. "That was closer than I liked," Jack admitted as they walked back to their temporary hideout, the stars beginning to sparkle in the night sky. Sky chuckled softly, squeezing his hand. "But we made it, together." Together they returned, not just as survivors, but as victors who had turned a desperate fight into a hopeful future. The sun rose over a calm sea, its golden rays illuminating the city that had been the stage of their confrontation. Sky and Jack stood on a quiet hill overlooking the water, the early morning light casting long shadows behind them. "It's over," Sky said quietly, her eyes reflecting the sunrise. "They won't come after us anymore." Jack nodded, a sense of relief washing over him. "We did it, Sky. We really did it." They took a moment to enjoy the peace, a stark contrast to the chaos of the previous days. The air felt fresher, and the world seemed a little brighter with the threat finally behind them. "Jack," Sky began, turning to face him, "you've given me a new life here. I don't know how to thank you." Jack smiled, his eyes warm. "Just promise me you'll make the most of it. That's thanks enough." Sky grinned, her mood lightened. "I promise." As they walked back to the city, Sky shared her plans. "I want to help others who are lost and alone, like I was. Maybe start a sanctuary or a mediation center to help integrate other beings who find themselves on Earth." "That sounds like a great idea," Jack replied, clearly proud of her ambition. "You'll be great at it." "And what about you, Jack? What will you do now?" Sky asked, curious about his plans. Jack considered her question for a moment. "I think I'll stick around, help you out. Maybe it's time I found a new purpose too, huh?" Sky's smile broadened. "I'd like that." They reached the city, now bustling with the morning rush. People went about their day, unaware of the quiet triumphs of the pair walking among them. Jack and Sky moved through the crowds, their steps light with the freedom of their newfound peace. As they reached a bustling cafe, they decided to stop for breakfast, something they hadn't had the luxury to enjoy recently. As they sat down, Jack pulled out a small, wrapped object and handed it to Sky. "Here, I got you something," he said, a shy grin spreading across his face. Sky unwrapped it to find a small Earth globe. "It spins," Jack added, demonstrating. The tiny globe twirled gracefully, showing all the continents of Earth. "It's beautiful, Jack." "Thank you," Sky said, her eyes gleaming with unshed tears. "Now, whenever I look at this, I'll think of Earth. And of you." Jack chuckled softly. "Well, you're stuck with me now, so get used to it." Their laughter blended into the morning bustle around them, a sound of pure joy and relief. After their meal, they walked through the city, planning Sky's sanctuary. They discussed outreach strategies, potential locations, and how to use her story to inspire and assist others. "Think of it, Jack," Sky mused as they surveyed a potential site by the river. "A place where anyone, human or alien, can find support and understanding. A true haven. I I can't think of anyone better to lead such a place, Jack replied, his admiration evident. You're going to change lives, Sky. As the day faded into evening, they found themselves back at the hill overlooking the sea, the site of their dawn realization. The sunset painted the sky in hues of orange and pink, a mirror of that morning's sunrise. Sky leaned against Jack, her head resting on his shoulder. We made it through the darkness, she whispered. And into the light, Jack added, wrapping an arm around her. They watched in silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, its light lingering like a promise. In this new world they were building together, they knew there would be challenges, but there would also be hope, peace, and purpose. As the stars began to twinkle in the twilight, Sky and Jack knew they faced a future not of isolation, but of shared journeys and dreams realized. Together, they had turned a story of survival into one of life anew. They had not just found each other, they had found a new home,